Every country has its own national possession. This is of course to show their pride and nationality to the world. In the Philippines, our national animal is the carabao. However, did you ever ask about what is the national hat of the Philippines? Well, you have the answer. It is on top of my head. Introducing, well, the salakot, the Philippine national hat. Now that is all done. Well, how about we just take a look about some situations in which we can use our salakots. Come on, let's take a look. Dang! Good afternoon, Philippines. They say that it's more fun in the Philippines, but dang! It's so hot in the Philippines, being a tropic country and all. Now, I need a headgear that would keep me shielded from the sun. If only there was something out there. Wow! A salakot from out of nowhere! This will keep me hanging. Yeah, it works. Let's get farming.
Ibaon mo na.
Finally, I can finally plant my kamote tops. There, all done. Now here is everything you need to know about my salakot. Let's get asking. And so, I tried checking the prices in Shopee about the salakot and, well, it seemed to range around 300 to 375 pesos. So, most likely, it is estimated to cost like around 400 to 200 pesos. Since I found some pretty cheap ones too online. So this salakot right here was gifted to me by my lola. And where did you get this? Saan niyo po siya nabili?
Taglaran yung Bohol.
At alam naman po natin, and we all know that you're from Bohol, na taga dun po kayo sa Bohol. Gaano po karaniwan nyo nakikita ang mga magsasaka na magsuot po ng ganito? Madalas po ba?
Madalas yun ang tinusuot na magsasaka.
So, there you have it. It was just a gift to me by my lola, of course, to embrace and showcase the pride of Boholeño and, of course, being a Filipino. And, of course, to those farmers out there who are always in the sun and drenched in the rain, that every time they plant their own crops in which they need something to keep their heads safe from the heat and from the cold of the rain or the sun or whatever weather they come and face. And this is the importance of our Filipino hat, the salakot. Knowing the Philippines has a variety of different dialects and knowing that the archipelago is divided, well, there's also a type of division in which when it comes to language. Of course, knowing that Filipino is the language of the Philippines, Tagalog isn't only the dialect that everybody knows. Well, for example, we call this the salakot as Malileños. But however, with the Ivatan people, they call it talugong. Another example is by the Ifugao people, in which they call it the halidung. As you see, there are a variety of different names for this Filipino hat, like Kalugong from the Kalinga people. We also have the Katukong from the northern people, the Ilocanos. And we also have the Sadok or Sarok, which comes from the Visayans, Bicolanos, and Mandayan people. Well, as you can notice, there's a different type of name for this Filipino hat. However, what never changes is the prosperity and the pride this hat gives to us Filipinos, as it gives us an identity, as it gives us pride, and it gives us something to be proud of for for the Filipinos to be known around the world. We see the salakot is 13 inches long and composes of the colors black. We also have cream white, and it's mostly part brown. Well, most of it at least. So that is the description of what is the size and what is the color of the salakot. Now that we know almost everything about my salakot, how about we recognize and ask, what started this? What is the essence and importance of this Filipino hat? What identity and specialty does it give to Filipinos in order to be recognized? Was it inspired by the Spanish? Did the Americans bring it? Well, that is something that we must uncover right now as we go back time and discover the history of our very own salakot. What are we waiting for? Let us explore and check out what are the most important information that we need to know about our own Filipino hat. The salakot, also known as the Philippine national hat. Well, in terms of wearing this, what do you think would an alien or foreigner would say to you? He or she would say that you are a Filipino. Of course, salakots are one of our national clothings of the Philippines. Back in the day, well, we would notice that salakots are not only part of modern Filipino history, but also ancient Filipino history dating back to the Spanish colonial period. Of course, the name salakot, well, it doesn't have a specific name, but the closest to it is native hat. Back in the Spanish period, when Spaniards were in the Philippines, the Spanish would always identify a person easily. And how is that? Well, from bamboo, rattan, nito ferns, and well, bottle gourds. That is what makes a salakot. However, the ruling class of the Philippines during that time, the Principalia, would add a little of more richness into it. And what richness means are gems, tortoise shells, and even metals like silvers. This would show that what type of society you belong to during a Philippine-occupied Spanish government. Well, of course, the Spanish would probably abuse the Filipinos back then, and most likely they would abuse those who are wearing a simple salakot. However, during these times, the Principalias, the Filipinos who are rich back in Spanish times, have a little bit of power in the Spanish government, in which us Filipinos who are simple, wearing this, have no power at all, and are easily targeted by the Spaniards. Well, that's it for the salakot and its identity during the Spanish colonial period. And thus ends the Spanish colonial period. Of course, salakots were identified, aliens were able to identify us, Principalias were customizing the salakots, and thus, well, the Treaty of Paris happened. And thus, the Americans came to the Philippines. Did you know that the salakot was used as a war helmet back in the Philippine-American War? Yes! And also, to share with you a more valuable information, in the Natural History Museum, our anthropological collections are there. And one of them is the salakot, which symbols that soldiers were captured during those times in the Philippine-American War. And thus, it shows that Filipinos were really proud to show off their pride as Filipinos and their nationalism and patriotism to their own country despite in times of war. Now thus, a question appears. And most Filipinos would even wonder, did Jose Rizal wear any Filipino costumes? Well, in fact, there was a letter. It's a reference Back in 1883, during a Spanish festival in Madrid, Spain, he wrote a letter describing on what seems to be his status in Spain. And in fact, he wrote there that he was wearing his own barongasa. And he also wrote in that letter, I wish I had my salakot. I wish I had my salakot. And this is according to Sir Ambet Ocampo, a professor in Ateneo de Manila University. However, let us move on and conclude what the salakot means. It may be a public figure, it may be a simple person, and it may be even be a modern day politician. Well, that's in case if you know the president would even wear a salakot like this. However, isn't it amazing? Isn't it just amazing that Filipinos are always willing to wear their own national costume in times of happiness, in times of war, in times of sadness, and in times of grief. It's just amazing how Filipinos are able to place these salakots on top of their heads just for them to be able to be recognized as Filipinos of the world. And which makes our Filipino pride, nationalism, and patriotism one of the best ever. For we will always be proud of our Filipino identity. To conclude, the salakot may be a piece of art. It can also be a piece of history, worn by Jose Rizal, other famous Filipinos. It can also be worn by the principales, the ruling class during the Spanish period. However, whatever we compose, or whoever wears it, let this be a reminder that the Filipino culture is still alive and living well during the modern age. Though we may look in times of the past, but let us not make that affect our love for our own culture to the present, to the future. This is the salakot, the Filipino national hat. And I am at Beltran from ST College Malolos, saying that love your culture, protect it, nourish it, and be proud of it. Again, salakot. I'm signing off. Thank you all for watching.